Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome back into another episode of PTN Extra. As always, I'm Evan Kamiko, joined alongside my friend Mike Irwin. Mike, it is Tennessee week. It is postseason baseball. Life is good. The Razorbacks are still playing.
Well, I guess this is a big deal. We're hearing all this stuff about this is the hardest ticket ever. What's rare and may have never happened, I didn't go check, but I can't imagine a super regional, which is a series, against a team you've already played a series against, and recently. So I think when you combine all of that, it makes it a big deal. And then you put Vitello in there and all the stuff he says and all of Tennessee's antics, and you got a lot of angry Razorback fans, and then Vitello saying this stuff about when I was a kid and I lost, and my dad always told me come back and just give it to him again. So we're coming back to give it to him. So, you know, we got all this stuff going on.
Yeah, it's a fun week. We're going to dive into baseball in a little bit after the break. We'll talk about Arkansas sports in general in the year in review. I'm really excited to do that. We've got a cool graphic to show you. That's much later in the show. But, Mike, let's start with this Tennessee series. First, let's start with our thoughts on regionals, right? Arkansas did what they had to do. They went 3-0. They made what on paper was one of the harder regionals a cakewalk.
Well, and I don't think they were rewarded for it because Tennessee's a team that had to go 4 games, and which means they have to play an extra day. Tennessee gets rewarded by moving this back to Saturday. I know a lot of Razorback fans favor what has happened, the Saturday, Sunday, Monday type thing if you have to play a third game. But I think it would have benefited Arkansas if Tennessee had to come in here, having played on Monday, and then had to come in here and use their pitchers again on Friday. And they didn't do it. And I don't know why they didn't do it. I don't know why the committee does the things that it does. Because to me, again, I don't understand their seedings. I said before, I don't think Tennessee should have been a 14 seed. They should have been an 11, no lower than an 11. But I don't understand why when you lose a game and have to go to a 4th game to win your regional, I don't understand why you're rewarded by that by pushing everything back for you. Because you got to go turn around and play again. To me, you ought to punish them a little bit. You lost. You know, you're going up against a higher seeded team that won. Play this thing, start this thing on Friday.
I think the big thing about why they started it Saturday, again, it's only one of 3 games. The whole series is going to be on ESPN. The only other games, I believe, off the top of my head that are going to be on ESPN, I think Florida State is, and I know for sure LSU West Virginia is going to be on ESPN Saturday. So I think it does have to do a little bit with TV scheduling and all of that. But
well, TV has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. And so the whole, I think what's interesting about this series is that you're right, we saw this 3 weeks ago here in Fayetteville, and you're probably going to see the exact same series play out yet again. Marcus Phillips, the number 2 from Tennessee, is probably going to go on Saturday because Liam Doyle had to come in and close out the Wake Forest game in Game 7 in the Knoxville Regional, and then you'll see Doyle pitching full on Sunday. So it's really interesting that we've already seen this series, and I'm curious for you, again, we've talked about it. You've said you don't think anything's happened, but why do you think that Arkansas could have an advantage in this series because of how it went just 3 weeks ago?
Well, I don't think they will. That's just my opinion. I think it's going to prove to be very hard to beat when 2 teams are this evenly matched, and they are. We'll go over the stats later, but they're very similar in a lot of ways. When you're that evenly matched, and this series went 2-1 Arkansas's favor, and maybe the scores in the 2 wins weren't just, they weren't nail biters.
Right.
But if you watch that series, any one of those 2 games that Arkansas won could have been a loss. So you didn't just bully these guys. I mean, I was, until that last out in Game 3, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So the point is, now you got to turn around and do it again. And then you've got this whole thing where what happened was, and their Game 2 starter is good.
Yeah.
He's good, and he beat Arkansas, and that was the weird game where Zach Root and Gackle pitched poorly.
Yeah.
Gave up 7 runs, and then, it just blew up on Arkansas. So I'm thinking they're in trouble after that because now they're bringing in, Liam Doyle, their best pitcher, and then Arkansas lights him up. Well, are they going to light him up 2 games in a row? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think they got to win Game 1 this time.
I was going to say, how vital is Game 1 right now? Again, Phillips, I'll read his stat line quickly. 3.71 ERA. He's 4-4 on the season, 16 appearances, 16 starts. And again, total strikeouts, I think, is something that's really eye-opening. He's got 93 strikeouts. Doyle has only 20 so far, or hopefully I'm reading the right thing. No, Doyle has 158. I'm reading Thomas Crabtree's stat line, but 93 strikeouts. So again, the 1-2 for Tennessee, they strike a lot of guys out. We saw that a couple weeks ago. But you think Game 1 is vital for Arkansas to win this series?
It is tough to face a pitcher, and Arkansas has that. They have strikeout guys. Yeah. But what usually happens to the strikeout guys is they don't go long. They'll go 4 innings, 5 innings at the most. Where you have a chance to beat Tennessee is once you get to their bullpen, because I think Arkansas has a better bullpen. What you can't do is Arkansas's 2 starting pitchers in those first 2 games. They can't do this thing where they get into the 3rd inning and you walk a batter, then you hit a batter, or they get a base hit, and the next thing you know, there's a 3-run home run.
Right.
So it gets back to how quickly does Dave Van Horn, pull one of these guys out of there, because if you don't, you could be in a hole that you can't get out of. But if Arkansas wins these 2 games, I think it will be scoring runs later in the game.
Yeah, and take that game, 4, that Arkansas Game 5, whatever it was, the winner's bracket game that they won the regional final in. I was on TV saying maybe they should get Gabe Gackle pulled or put into the game a little earlier than they did. Again, look, at the end of the day, Dave Van Horn was right. Gage Wood settled down, really threw one bad pitch that whole game, and it was a 3-run home run. But I think, to your point, is it's going to be so important for them to get that Game 1 win, to set the tone, because Tennessee, they know what they're walking into. When you have a team, if you look at West Virginia and Baton Rouge, that's probably the 2nd best super regional of the weekend. Like, that is a team in West Virginia. They've played in big environments, but they haven't played at Alex Box Stadium this year. Like, Tennessee came to Arkansas in the middle of May, like a month ago. So they know what they're walking into. As great as the atmosphere is going to be, and as great as, like we've already talked about on how the tickets are maybe the hardest Arkansas baseball ticket ever to get to, they know what they're walking into. How big of an advantage is that on the Tennessee side? That you're like, we've seen this before in postseason mode.
I think it's an advantage that they have that if somebody else had been sent here, wouldn't have.
Right.
It's just one more reason why I say, first of all, the big mistake was making them a 14 seed to go up against a 3 seed if they both win. I think they did that for a reason. I think it was TV related, and I think the TV people are getting what they want. Because let's face it, the whole thing, from a TV standpoint, all you're going to hear from these announcers, it's going to be Vitello and Dave Van Horn. It's already started. Arkansas puts up an old interview with Vitello where he looks like a totally different guy. He's clean shaven, and he's young, and he's just friendly. And I remember him when he was the baseball coach here. He was a nice guy. I would have never thought he would turn into this bearded guy that looks kind of angry all the time.
Yeah.
And let's face it, what did we see from them? Once again, Tennessee, and their catcher is out for the first game because he got suspended. A Tennessee batter gets walked, throws his bat down. The other team's catcher is like, what's that all about? Because he about threw it down on his foot.
Yeah.
And he's like, naturally, like, what are you doing there? And so, the ump comes along and rushes the guy on to first base. Here comes Vitello. He argues for 2 minutes. What's he arguing about? That the guy should have a right to throw the bat down and nobody should do anything?
Yeah.
We should just stand here and let us act like jerks?
Yeah.
Because that's what they do.
Yeah, it's a team that they take the mentality of their head coach. Every team does, and Tennessee is a great example. If you look at Andrew Fisher, he's a guy yesterday that had the Wake Forest head coach saying things that I can't say on even our website show and on PTN Extra, that it's like this guy steps out of the box. They are one of the slowest teams. They play one of the slowest paced games in the entirety of college baseball. Then you look at Fisher's line, and he's 343 average guy, hits for absolute power, 24 home runs, 16 doubles, 72 total hits this season. I think RBI 64. So he is arguably one of the best. And it's funny because him and Doyle are both Ole Miss transfers. Ole Miss could have used both of them this past weekend when they lost to Murray State. But it's really interesting to see that, like, how much this team and how much all teams in college take after their head coach.
Well, they do. And I think when Dave Van Horn steps down, Razorback fans are going to miss that if they don't get somebody that's similar to that.
Yeah.
Vitello, from the minute he went to Tennessee and started having success early on, there was these rumors floating around. He wanted to come back. He's got a lot of friends here. And I've talked to some of them. They say, hey, he wants this job eventually when it opens up. At one time, I would say he's a shoo-in. Now, I'm not saying he can't get it, I don't even know if he still wants it.
Right.
But Razorback fans will not react positively if you hire him because they don't like the guy by and large.
Right, and there's the whole idea, right? Tennessee's put a lot of money into their baseball program as of lately. They're building a brand new outfield section for fans to sit in, so they're clearly investing in what Tony V is doing.
Right.
And he's got the national championship, so he's got the bling to back it up. Mike, before we go to a quick break, what to you is the biggest stat? Like, what has to happen for Arkansas if they want to win this game? When you break down the numbers, where's the difference?
These two teams are very even. Batting average 313, 304, home runs 120, 128, ERA 393, 395. The difference, fielding, defense. Arkansas is the best defensive team in the SEC. Tennessee is one from the bottom. And not so coincidentally, in the game they won here, both teams had an error, and Tennessee won. Game 2, Tennessee had 2 errors, Arkansas none. Arkansas won. Game 3, Tennessee had 3 errors, Arkansas none. Arkansas won. I'm not saying the game will be decided on errors, but if you watch Tennessee enough, you'll see 2 things. Their relief pitching when they get deep into their bullpen is not very good,
right,
and they don't play good defense.
To your point, Tennessee fielding percentage, not as a team, about 969. Their opponents are fielding 973. So I know you covered
69 errors to 32 from Arkansas.
Yeah. Yep, and 55 for Tennessee's opponents. So clearly they're making a lot more mistakes. So I agree with you. I think Arkansas, they're going to have the advantage for the crowd. I think that's going to play into a factor as well when Tennessee's in the field. The question's going to be, can Arkansas put the balls in play? Can they hit the pitching? Can they get Doyle and Marcus Phillips' pitch count up quick enough to get it done?
And do Arkansas's, especially their starting pitchers, do you avoid walks? Do you avoid hitting a batter?
Yeah.
And giving up a base hit and then giving up a home run? Because Tennessee's like sharks smelling blood in the water when they get 2 or 3 men on and they get a guy up there, he's going to hit a grand slam, 3-run homer, or whatever. That's what they do.
Yeah, Fisher, great example of that in that game against Wake Forest. All of a sudden it was 5-3, 5-2, and next thing you know it's 8-5, and Tennessee really's got that game on handle. Let's take a look really quickly at the schedule for this weekend as the Hawks kick off the best-of-3 series with Tennessee on Saturday. First pitch set for 4 p.m. Then they'll play Game 2 on Sunday. We expect Game 1 to be Zach Root and Marcus Phillips. Game 2, probably Gage Wood against Liam Doyle. Doyle and Vahiva Lloyd both are Golden Spikes Award winner finalists, the top 3, and Alex Lodice from Florida State. So if they win 2 of those games, it's over. If not, it's a TBD game, Game 3 on Monday for a chance to go to Omaha. That is going to do it right now for Mike Irwin and myself. When we come back from break, we'll have much more PTN Extra. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back into PTN Extra. Evan Kamiko, Mike Irwin hanging out with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Mike, let's do something fun, right? Arkansas baseball is wrapping up, and they're really, besides track and field, the last 2 sports to wrap up. So let's do a year in review segment for this Arkansas Razorback program as a whole. We'll take a look at how some of the top programs at the university finished this year. If we can pop those graphics up, we'll start with football, 7-6, 6-6 in the regular season. They won the Liberty Bowl. Basketball, we're talking men's basketball, women's basketball, obviously coaching change, a lot happening there. But the men lost in the Sweet 16, finished 22-12. And then we've got, next up is baseball, 46-13. We just talked a lot about them going to the Super Regionals right now. After that, softball, 44-14, they lost in Super Regionals. Then we got track and field and cross country. Cross country, the men won the SEC championship. Cross country women, they finished 4th in the SEC championship. As for track and field itself, the women won the SEC indoor. The men won the SEC outdoor. Again, all the national championship. That stuff's still going on as we speak. That national championship in Eugene, June 11th to 14th. And then women's golf, they just finished in the Elite 8. The men's golf, they made the tournament but lost in the first round. And then we've got a couple more things to show you. It starts with Maria Jose Marin. She ended up being the individual national champion for women's golf. Arkansas soccer, led by Colby Hale, 16-2-3, a fantastic year for them. Ended short, lost in the Sweet 16 to Stanford. And then gymnastics, dealing with all the injuries. Lauren Williams out for the season. Frankie Price gets hurt at the end. They lost in the Pennsylvania regional final. So, Mike, this is where we stand all year for the Razorbacks. Let's give a grade. If you were to grade Arkansas athletics A to F, where would you land them for the 2024-2025 calendar year?
I'd give them an A. They have this thing called the Director's Cup. And what it does, they have a point system to measure success of your overall athletic program. And they rate all of the schools. on a point system. And right now, it's about 6 weeks old. They don't adjust it all the time.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be another adjustment in about a week. So these are about maybe a month late. But Arkansas, in the last time they did a point update, Arkansas was 4th in the SEC and 14th overall. Now, that may not sound all that impressive. Here's the issue. They don't distinguish between how many sports you compete in. You just get points. Well, a bunch of these teams have sports like ice hockey, fencing, rowing, wrestling, that Arkansas doesn't do.
Yeah.
Arkansas has actually a small number of, because it costs more money when you do these more sports.
Not to mention as well Title IX, taking certain sports away and adding certain sports here.
So if you add up, factor in the fact that Arkansas actually has a relatively low number of sports that they compete in compared to some of these other teams that are up there in the Directors' Cup, I'm telling you, 14th is impressive nationally. Texas, for instance, #1 in the SEC, but they have all these crazy sports. They have rowing, come on.
Yeah.
They do a lot of this stuff. So I would give them an A. But here's the thing, you're not going to convince a lot of Razorback fans of this, because the thing that matters most to them is football, and football is kind of down compared to most of the other sports. They are better. They had a better season this year. You showed it. They won a bowl game. They not only went to a bowl game, they won it, as opposed to 4 wins the year before. That is a tremendous boost in 1 year. They're not getting hardly any love for that, because now what they're all saying is, okay, but they're going back downhill this year. Based on what I saw last spring and what I continue to see from this team, I think they're going to be better than they were last year. They may not win as many games because the schedule is brutal.
Yeah, you go on the road to Memphis, who won 9 to 10 games last year, on the road to Tennessee, to Texas, to LSU, to Ole Miss, 4 of those teams who all won 8+ games. It is a daunting schedule, but I love that you brought up the fans, because that's kind of my whole point in this segment, right? Like, you hear online, you hear all the chatter behind the scenes. Well, Arkansas as a whole and the school itself isn't that good, right? Like at all the sports. But the problem is that we're so focused on football that we don't include these other sports where you have how many SEC championships, how many Sweet 16s, an Elite 8 run, a national champion, and that's all thrown out the wayside because football isn't doing what it does, right? Football isn't there. It isn't on the same level. If football were to go 9-3 this year and win a bowl game or lose a bowl game,
changes everything.
Right. So curious to you, how do you change that perspective of fans? What is it for you that needs to change? Because let's be real, I agree with you. I would give them probably a B+, right? No, I think getting men's basketball to the Sweet 16, getting baseball and softball to the Sweet 16, and soccer, that's 4 sports in the Sweet 16. Not even to mention all the SEC championships track and field have won and the national championships over the last couple of years. But how do you change fans' perspective that don't understand that it's football is everything? Because let's be real, they do make money from these smaller sports. It's just not the revenue that you get from the revenue sharing of football.
You're not going to change it. Football has to win. You can go right now in Hogville. We're affiliated with Hogville. You can go down and it's called Monday Morning Quarterback. That's the football forum. And there's a big long thread in there about why Arkansas football has gone downhill. And it's fascinating reading. These fans, those guys are plugged in. They go all the way back really to when Arkansas entered the SEC, how they weren't prepared for the SEC. And they've had some success, but you haven't had sustained success. You have Houston Nutt having some good years, and then all that stuff happened with Mustaine and the Springdale 5, and then it all blows up, and then here comes Petrino, and he has 3 really good years, the best 3 years they've had, 9 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins. What do you think Razorback fans would do right now if Arkansas had won 9 wins, 10 wins, and 11 wins the last 3 seasons?
Through the roof.
That's the last time it's really been like that. Bielema came in and had a couple of decent years, went down and beat Texas in the Ding Dong Bowl. Okay, it was really good. Oh, whoopee. And then he kind of went to his head. They started doing this program called Being Brett Bielema, and he was the star of it. It was on ESPN, and they were following him in an airplane when he recruits, and then guess what happened? Went downhill because a bunch of his coaches left, and so now he's trying to reinvent himself at Illinois. And then you've got this whole crazy thing happen when Petrino got fired and John L. Smith came in and somehow convinced Jeff Long, hey, put me in charge of this thing just for I don't really want the job full time. I'll just do it for eight months. And everybody thought, oh yeah, he'll come in and work hard. He didn't do anything. It was like a leaderless football team. They still won 4 games, which is better than what happened with Chad Morris when they made that hire. Because again, what happened was a bunch of Arkansas boosters thought they could get Gus Malzahn. They got played by Jimmy Sexton. Malzahn just wanted more money to stay at Auburn. And all of a sudden, Arkansas has got this interim AD because they fired their AD, Arkansas's AD, thinking that they could get it. Gus Malzahn will come here if you fire Gus Malzahn or Jeff Long, because Gus Malzahn doesn't like Jeff Long. So they do that, and it just happened like that. That whole period was interesting from a booster standpoint to show you just how much power these boosters have if they decide to flex their muscle, and they did there, but they did it for the wrong. They didn't check Malzahn out. They didn't understand what he was doing, and all of a sudden, that you're sitting here with, well, we thought we had this guy. Now we have nobody, and we've got an interim AD, and she hires Chad Morris. And that we know how that went. He didn't even last 2 years. So then by the time you get there, who do you go to next? If you're Hunter Yurachek, you don't have a lot of options because everybody he talked to was not interested. And he finally got down to the guy he hired now. And so there's a discussion about this. You get rid of you get rid of your Sam Pittman, and what makes you think they're going to suddenly go out and hire a big-time coach? Oh, well, would you pay the money? Okay, where's the money coming from? If the boosters are motivated, this is what happened. You had one booster that was motivated to get Calipari, and the money came. But that's the whole thing. You've got to find 3 or 4 people, 5 or 6 people that are willing to really pitch in some money and go after a coach big time. And I'm not even sure that would happen right now because Arkansas just does not have a reputation right now in football.
Right, and I know we've talked about this during football season. We've talked about it in January. We talked about it in February, right, with football, is that it's not always the flashy hire that's going to make the big splash. You take Indiana last year. It's Curt Cignetti. IU fans didn't love the hire. Amazing. It wasn't splashy, but it worked out at the end. And now, will it work out in the future? Who knows? But did we get our 111-win season in the heights of being a top college football playoff team? Absolutely. So the point being is, right, like, as somebody who was an Indiana fan for the last couple of years, I would take 7 wins in a heartbeat. And then when you look at all this success outside of football, in the smaller sports relatively speaking, how can you not be satisfied?
Well, the X factor in trying to hire a coach to turn your program around when you've got all these problems, there's an X factor there. There's a guy out there, maybe 2 of them, maybe 3 of them somewhere. If you hire them, they'll come in and do it, but you got to know that they will. Do you think Indiana really understood what they were getting? I think they thought they were getting a good coach. But this guy can win anywhere, in my opinion. So why didn't Arkansas go after him before that? Because you've got to know who these people are. And you got to say to yourself, okay, yeah, he won there, but would he win here? And all that stuff goes on. There's somebody out there that they could hire when Pittman steps down that would turn this program around. But who is it? And will they hire the right guy? And I don't know.
And they've got to get, like we said, you got to get a little lucky too, right? Like there is a sense of luck into all of this, right? Like it is not just, well, he's the best candidate. Like Calipari's the best candidate, so we know he's going to work out. Let's be real. Cal hasn't really worked out at Kentucky the last couple of years because they haven't made the second weekend of the tournament. So it was, yes, a little lucky with timing for basketball, but it worked. It ended up getting you to where you wanted to be, where this team was supposed to be at the beginning of the year, and to where Cal hasn't been in a couple years. So that's the big thing, is it also takes a little bit of luck. So anything else, Mike, on PTN Extra this week you want to talk about?
That covers a lot of stuff.
we did cover a lot of ground this week.
I'm not saying Arkansas can't beat Tennessee in this. I wish they were playing somebody else because I just think it's hard to win a series. 2 evenly matched teams to win 2 series from them. I don't even know when that's happened before. I guess it's happened, but a team plays a series against the same team twice in 1 year?
Looks like we've got a little more research to do.
Yeah. Maybe it's happened somewhere. I don't know.
I will say the one thing I'm most looking forward to is that game 2 on Sunday, getting Vahiva Aloy in the batter's box and Liam Doyle on the mound. I think that should just decide who wins the Golden Spikes Player of the Year right there. Like, we don't even need to vote. We don't need to do it in Omaha. If Vahiva goes yard off Doyle, Vahiva is it. If Doyle strikes out Vahiva 3 times, give Doyle the National Player of the Year.
I would be satisfied with Brett Iredale starting to hit again. His batting average is way below 300 now. He used to be up around 350.
Yeah.
Well, get that guy back, and you got some. You're going to do some things because most of this lineup is hitting really well right now. And even Bahiva, he's inconsistent, but he had a good regional. Now, Gojio,
he needs to start. Yeah.
He kind of went the other direction.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, Mike. You got your prediction? Are we doing predictions right now, or you want to save that?
I'll go with Arkansas.
You like Arkansas?
With trepidation. I'm really worried about it.
I like the Hogs too. We'll see. It should be a fun weekend of baseball here on the Hill. For Mike Irwin, I'm Evan Kamiko. That's going to do it for PTN Extra this week. We'll see you right back here next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.